So we're going to kick off by talking about what's going on in the tropics, and the biggest update, most glaringly, just from last night to this morning, is that we officially have our second named storm of the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season. That is Tropical Storm Bertha, which we're looking at right now on infrared satellite. So I want to take you behind this system. First and foremost, the thing I need to say right off the bat is that this is not going to directly impact central Georgia. The movement of this system is going to be over to the west, so it's actually going in the opposite direction of our area. But just for the sake of kind of knowing what's going on with this system, since it is so close to home, we'll talk a little bit about what it's doing, how it's forming, and overall just its strength and what it's expected to do over the next couple of days. So like I said, we're looking at it right now on infrared satellite, and I want to point out a couple of key details to you just right off of the bat. So you're looking right now at the center of circulation and then all of this associated shower and thunderstorm activity. But there's two important things about that. One is the center of circulation is actually a little bit out ahead of where you see all of this shower and thunderstorm activity. So why that's important is because this system is not super pretty. Normally when we see a tropical system or a hurricane, something like that, it's a lot better organized and it's got a lot better formation. But this system is having a hard time getting organized because of the vertical wind shear. So what's happening is that there's actually upper level winds near this system that are essentially knocking the shower and thunderstorm activity away from the center of circulation. It's tilting the storm to the south, so it's not really able to vertically organize, and strong tropical systems need to be able to vertically organize in order to really get their act together and become stronger. So that's part of the reason that even despite the fact this system has been sitting in the Gulf for the last couple of days over warm waters where it seemingly should be gaining lots of strength, it really hasn't been able to do so. It is a tropical storm right now, so it's not just sitting there doing nothing. It is strengthening a bit, but when we talk about that center of circulation versus the shower and thunderstorm activity, the vertical organization of those two features is just really not in line. You can see it a little bit better when we flip over to the satellite and the radar picture, because you can see with the radar where you see the heavier bands of rain, the thunderstorms over to the west, versus on the satellite where you can see the center of circulation that is clearly out ahead of this. So I go out of my way to mention this just because it is important as we start talking about the potential landfalling of this system, that the worst of the weather is actually down to the south of this system. That ends up being a good thing because it keeps the worst of the weather away from where we're actually predicting the landfalling to be. So that is a good thing. We'll take a look at the cone. It kind of does a little bit of a better job explaining what I'm trying to say here. We take this out just to kind of the next few days into Wednesday evening. This cone tells us it is expected to be a tropical storm by the time that it makes landfall along the Gulf Coast and really ultimately the Louisiana coast. When we take a look at where the system sits right now, it is still fairly strong, winds up to 60 miles an hour, below 1,000 millibar pressure, and moving extremely slowly over to the northwest at about 3 miles an hour. So like I said, it is just kind of sitting there still gaining strength, but because of the organization of this system, if that center of circulation rolls over the Gulf Coast and ultimately the Louisiana coast, all of that bad weather, the strong thunderstorms, the heavier rainfall, the tropical downpours is actually going to stay south of the actual landfalling, which ends up being a good thing. And then taking the center of circulation over land, when we try to extend this out further and this system tries to head over to the Texas coast, it's really not going to be much at all because that center of circulation rolled over landfall, disrupting it. So now we're just talking about a remnant low pressure system that will move into Texas as we head into the weekend. So just kind of deconstructing the system as a whole to show you what the impacts are going to be along the Gulf Coast here. You can also see it really well when we play it through on model data. So right now we're looking at the graph, high resolution model. We play it forward to talking about when it would be making landfall towards the Gulf Coast. And again, notice this is where you'd be seeing all of those really strong thunderstorms, the potential for even tornadoes in some of the areas that have high spin, and all the tropical downpours. But since that's all behind this, the center of circulation rolls over and the majority of that stays to the south of actual land masses. So that ends up being a good thing. Of course, they still get showers and thunderstorms. You still obviously get strong winds with the center of circulation as well. But in this kind of case, we'd be talking a little bit more about a storm surge concern, more about rip currents and nasty weather out on the beaches, as opposed to all of this nastiness moving further into land and becoming a bigger issue. And like I said, by the time we go over into Texas, this just becomes disrupted and unorganized, and it's likely just a remnant low pressure system and a couple of showers and thunderstorms. So overall, good news. Despite that, this is not kind of a total guarantee. It's definitely looking like it's going to be this way. But even in the forecast, like I said, with that center of circulation rolling over, a couple of bands within this system can still have some gusty winds, so tropical storm watches and ultimately a couple of tropical storm warnings are in effect for portions of the Gulf Coast. This means along the coast, they're expected to see at least tropical storm force winds within the next 48 hours and likely some tropical downpours as well. But like I said, you can see these warnings kind of extend to the coast here. A lot of that concern is going to be when it comes to beaches out all the way on the coast. Rip currents, things like that is going to be part of the concern with that. And when it comes to the heavy rainfall, the good news is because all of those tropical downpours kind of stay to the south of it, we're talking about totals between 1 to 2 inches. The concern here would be flash flooding, that 1 to 2 inches coming down extremely quickly, but still, this is a lot better than if the bulk of that rainfall was making its way over land. So that's kind of our latest update with the 11 a.m. update in terms of the tropical system. Again, for us here in central Georgia, no direct impacts are expected. We're really just going to be seeing a couple of showers and thunderstorms making our way because of the pattern that this tropical system is creating in our atmosphere. But other than that, we are not expecting direct impacts from Tropical Storm Bertha.